Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I did a video earlier and it was about kind of joking a little bit about people needing to drink protein shakes to get in 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and someone chimed in and said, hey, you're saying that people don't need that much protein to gain muscle. You're saying most of the experts in the world are saying the same thing, but Eric Helms, Dr. Eric Helms, is saying that he recommends at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight for people who are cutting. And he's a doctor and expert, and I don't think he's paid by any supplement companies. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on scaling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And yes, I have had conversations with Dr. Helms in the past. I actually like the guy. He's actually overall a good guy. Now, I wouldn't say he doesn't have any financial association with supplement companies, because I'm pretty sure he's been sponsored by a couple as an athlete. But that doesn't necessarily detract from his work, because his doctoral work was actually pretty interesting. So when we're talking about this, you need to understand context and the target audience. My target audience is generally people who are seeking to get in better shape, people who are seeking to be more athletic, people who want a lifestyle of fitness, performance, strength, things like that, along with people who are going to compete either like in amateur sports of some type, powerlifting, something like that, or even high school level sports. That's generally who at least 95% of my audience is. I don't really cater to competitive bodybuilders. That's not my target audience. This is a fitness channel, not a bodybuilding channel. The two are almost mutually exclusive. There can be very, very little overlap between actual fitness and competitive bodybuilding. Dr. Helms, his target audience for all of this, including his research, was on competitive bodybuilders. So you need to understand that's not a contradiction when he recommends higher protein intakes than I, and even I say a lot of experts recommend, like sports nutritionists. I usually say about 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. That's generally the recommendation for people losing weight. People who need to come down a weight class in their sport, for example. They need to lose 5-10 pounds of body weight over the course of several months to maintain their muscle mass, to get into a new weight class. People who just need to lose a little bit of body fat. That's usually the recommendation. Now, 1 gram per pound of body weight would be 2.2 grams per kilo, so a little higher than what I said. Is that a contradiction? No, because Dr. Helms's information is for pre-contest bodybuilders. That's who he also did his research on. And what people need to understand, cutting down contest lean is not something anyone who's interested in fitness or health would consider doing. All right, I'm just going to be blunt about it. Cutting down to contest lean body fat is about as interesting to people who are serious about fitness and health as smoking crack is. All right, that's about the same level of interest they're probably going to have. There's no healthy reason to cut down that lean. First of all, it's temporary. You can't maintain it. And even Eric Helms' doctoral work, if you look at the blood work of the people he studied where he came to these protein conclusions, when these natural bodybuilders had cut down contest lean, their blood work looked fucking horrific. And that should have been a wake-up call to people who say, hey, I want to get shredded, till you see the blood work of people who actually do get shredded. They have almost no testosterone, their thyroid levels crash, everything else. They half the time can't even get an erection. Guys are like, well, I want to get shredded. Why? So your dick won't work? So your lipid profile will look like shit so that you can predispose yourself to organ damage and heart attacks? Why are you wanting to get shredded? It's not like you can maintain it. It's a temporary thing, okay? So people need to understand why he has higher recommendations than the other. Okay, a lot of it's common sense. What is it that we've seen over the years, different researchers have shown with data, and what did Dr. Helms find and conclude with his own research on losing body fat? How much protein do you need? Well, it's a sliding scale. It's not an exact answer. It's not an exact answer. There are several factors that are going to determine how much protein you need to take in to maintain your muscle mass. Number one, how much body fat you have. The more fat you have on your body, the less protein you need to eat to hold on to your muscle mass. In fact, when you have more fat, your body will liberate fat easier and it won't dig into your muscle mass as much. Meaning the fatter you are, the easier it is to hold on to your muscle mass, your strength, everything when you're cutting. And that includes even your protein intake. The leaner you get, the more protein you need to hold on to muscle mass. All right, so if you're 25% body fat and you're losing weight, You don't need as much protein as someone who's 10 or 11% body fat who's trying to cut. You don't need anywhere near as much protein. Their body is going to start tapping into their muscles a lot quicker, a lot easier. They're going to start losing muscle mass easier unless they up their protein intake. When you get lean and you continue to try to get leaner, that's one of the biggest factors. Number two, how big your caloric deficit is. Meaning someone who's only losing a half a pound of fat a week doesn't need to take in as much protein as someone who's losing 2 pounds of fat a week, or even 1 pound of fat a week. They don't need as much protein to hold on to their muscle mass. So the faster you are losing weight, meaning the bigger your caloric deficit, and the leaner you are, the more your protein intake has to go up. And yeah, he found there were people who needed considerably more than 1 gram per pound of body weight to hold on to their muscle mass. That is what he found. I'm not arguing with that. I mean, his research was pretty solid. Eric did a good job on it. And I don't think anyone can take that away from him. But people need to understand the context of his research. His research was on ultra lean people who were getting leaner. All right, it was for pre-contest bodybuilders who were getting contest level ripped. And what his data found is the same thing I just explained. The leaner you are, the more protein. You need to keep increasing your protein as you get leaner if you don't want to start losing muscle mass. And invariably, you will lose some muscle mass when you get ripped. It's unavoidable. Half the time drugs won't even help unless you're new to drugs. Experienced drug users will even lose muscle mass on drugs, on steroids, when they're losing fat and get too lean. It just happens. There's no way to keep all of it if you get really, really ripped. You're going to lose a little bit. So it's just trying to minimize the loss. But you need to understand that there is a big difference between the protein needs of someone who's 10 or 11% body fat who wants to spend another 3 months dieting straight after that. So that's what you have to put into perspective. The average person who just wants decent abs would be thrilled to be at 10% or 11% body fat. Bodybuilders used to step on stage in the 50s at 10 to 12% body fat all the time and win bodybuilding shows, all right? That is that aesthetic level of leanness most people want is in the 10 to 12% range. Shredded is totally different. And guys who want to get shredded, it's going to be more difficult to do. It's harder on the body. It's harder on your mind. It's more difficult to do. That is what bodybuilders do. And incidentally, that's one of the times I try to tell people, you're not a bodybuilder just because you build your body. Bodybuilder is one word, not 2 words. It's not bodybuilding, bodybuilding. One word. It's a competitive endeavor. And lifting weights and building up your body is nothing like what these guys subject themselves to get ready for a show. Getting ripped, that's the thing. A lot of people get involved in this community and they see that and they think, hey, I want to get ripped just to do it. That's a really bad reason. It is hard on your body. It's difficult. It's hard on your mind. It can cause damage to your body. So to do something like that, damaging to yourself, just to do it, not to be competitive, not to win something, just to do it is kind of insane. In fact, most people won't follow through with that because they're going to find it's not worth it. When they're irritable, hungry, tired, their dick doesn't work, and you realize you still have another 8 pounds to lose, that's usually the point where most guys say, fuck this, it's not worth it. Because it isn't. But the context of this is his protein intake advice is for people who are pre-contest bodybuilders. And he would tell you, if you're not going to step on a stage, please don't do this to yourself. When you look at the blood work of these people, that have gotten that lean, when you see all their blood work and their hormone levels, it becomes apparent this is not something you really want to do to yourself just to do it. It's not fun, it's hard on your body, and it can harm your health. It's not good for you. There have been a couple cases of people who dieted down contest level lean and their testosterone levels never came back and they had to go on TRT. The same reason half the people out there say, I won't use steroids because I'm scared of crashing my testosterone levels and having to stay on for life. Well, there have also been cases of people doing that from dieting down and getting ultra ripped where their testicles didn't start working again afterwards either. You're still taking that sort of risk. You're taking the sort of risk that you're going to hurt yourself. So we are not talking about the same thing. We're talking about people who are just trying to get to fit athletic levels of body fat when I'm talking about protein intake needed for losing body fat. And it's definitely a hell of a lot less protein is needed to build muscle than you need to hold on to muscle when you're dieting. So we're dealing with 2 different sets of numbers. And again, when you compare Eric's advice That's not necessarily the same advice or the same numbers you're going to give to a general fitness enthusiast. That's not what his research is on, and that is not Eric's target audience. So people do need to put that in perspective when you say things like that. Cutting is not the same for every person and every person's goals. And the goals, your starting point, your desired endpoint are going to affect the methods that you use there dramatically. It's going to make a big difference. Believe me, cutting from 25% body fat down to 15 is nothing like going from 12% body fat down to 6 or 7%. They're not even in the same category. Even though the other one, you lose more fat, the other one is a lot harsher on your body, and it can be a lot more difficult, a lot more demanding, and it can be way harder on you and actually more dangerous. So totally different goals that we're talking about here. So please, guys, remember to put this stuff into context and into perspective when you look at these things and say, hey, I see a contradiction. No, because we're talking about apples and oranges here, not the same thing. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.